So introduce yourselves, guys. I'm Sean McAllister. I'm the team leader.
I'm David Hunter.
I'm Sean Richardson.
Oh yeah, use the mic.
I'm Sean Richardson.
Yeah.
You guys should move up.
I'm Lee Hollow. I'm from DePaul.
I'm Chris Lytle, and I'm also from DePaul.
Jared Rathbun from Cal Poly.
Stephen Crane, a.k.a. Reno.
Take a while to turn.
Yep.
I'm David Jowie from Cal Poly.
I'm Jeff Henbis, Cal Poly coach.
I'm Professor Brandon Brown, CIS Department, College of Business, Cal Poly.
Okay,
And yes,
so
I have to say all that, or I get in trouble.
So you saw there's two teams represented up here. There's Cal Poly and then there's DePaul. DePaul was actually speaking at B-Sides yesterday, and we decided to invite them along today since they're CCDC members. Does anyone in the audience participate in the CCDC competition? Anyone? A bunch of people. Awesome. Coaches. Nice. Okay. You got a red team member in front of you there. You can smack him in the back of the head.
Blue teams?
Any blue teams? In there? Coach, advisor, what? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so basically the format, this is supposed to be a panel, so we're just going to go through about a 15 to 20 minute talk, just kind of explain what CCDC is, how we participate in it, how we train for it, and then DePaul's going to kind of fill in any blanks that we left off, and then we'll open up for questions, and I hope we got a bunch because we only got about 20 minutes of content, so. Let's see. All right. Yep. So we're, like we said, Cal Poly Pomona. DePaul's not quite on there, but basically our group is a combination of two different school clubs. SWIFT, which is students with interest in feature telecommunications. That's all these fancy black poles we have up here. That's what these are for. And CSS, the Computer Science Society. Let's see. Renan right there. He is the president of CSS this year, and unfortunately our SWIFT president isn't here, but Sean is the vice president this year, and Jared is the treasurer for it. So those two clubs really, we do a lot on campus, and we just we bring in a lot of talent, and that's how everyone on here found out about CCDC was through SWIFT and CSS. I can't even see my screen. Okay. All right, so the basic idea behind the competition, we call it an accelerated business environment. I heard someone say it's like 3 weeks and 3 days, or 3 months, 3 days, depending how you look at it. Basically what happens is you're given us a network, 8 to 10 computers, kind of like a small business basically, or more. And it's pre-set up for you. You don't know what's on these machines. You don't know what the architecture is, what operating systems, things like that. And they're set up basically by a disgruntled IT department. The basic idea is that guy is angry. And he sets things up. He puts Trojans on them. He puts, open firewall rules, misconfigured services, pretty much any IT person's nightmare when you walk in. And the challenge competition is not only to configure those systems correctly, but keep the business up and running while you're being targeted and attacked by the red team. So that guy there and the guy that left. And in addition to that, you're given additional what we call injects, business injects. As far as you have to set up this service, you have to do this, you have to add this user, delete this user, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so up there you see pretty much this is kind of bolted point of what I just said. You have to respond to changes in the business plan. This also involves things like policy changes. They'll give you something and say, develop a secure deletion policy, develop develop our network infrastructure. You have to redesign the network's infrastructure, things like that. You have to support users, managers, and customers. Basically, your customer is essentially what we term the white team. The white team says, we need this service up, we need that service up. So you have to keep them happy and complete these tasks they give you for points, essentially. Obviously, the competition's name is defense competition. So the whole idea is, if you implement something, if you set up a service, it has, you want it to be secure because you're always being attacked. And the idea is to simulate the real world as closely as possible. And the red team, it's a good opportunity because there's a red team the entire time, the entire weekend. It's usually 2 to 3 days long. The entire weekend, you have a dedicated team that their whole purpose is just to make you cry, essentially.
If I can just say something real quick, Sean.
Go ahead.
In setting up the competition, that's one of the greatest challenges for the host school or the host organization. Days and even months go into setting up the architecture. Sean had mentioned something I want to just quickly correct him. The teams for the Western Regional Competition, they did get architecture, topologies, and roadmaps prior to the competition, but they were left off very vague, and they were subject to change all the way up until the day of the competition.
Yeah, that's
and
what
that, yes, of course, did happen. I was actually also the architect of the Western Regional design, and we had some great sponsorship from Cisco Systems, from Intel, from Microsoft, from VMware, that they donated a lot of their resources and equipment. Unfortunately, they didn't donate any time and personnel to help set up this equipment, so it was kind of a challenge in doing that as well. But we also had a lot of support from alumni as well. And we expect support from other alumni for next year's competition.
All right, so this slide just kind of dictates a little bit more what I talked about as far as what to expect when you walk in. We've got Trojans and everything kind of virus and malware, anything you can think of, anything the black team can think of. Misconfigurations. Also, one thing they do focus on is personally identifiable information stored on like the web servers and things like that, because that is a big deal in industry these days. So you'll have Social Security numbers or credit card numbers stored in plain text on the website somewhere. And if the red team is able to find those basically before you do, you lose points and things like that. Yes, the red team. So right there, this gentleman in the black shirt here, that's Joe Luna. He is the red team captain for Western Regional. And sitting next to him is Cause. Cause was actually the only person at the Western Regional to break into our systems. So screw you, Cause. But they're the reason really the competition is fun for us. It's not. I don't know. I don't consider it fun to set up antivirus and reconfigure services over and over and so on and so forth. I consider it fun to set up systems that they try to break into and laugh when they can't and cry when they can. But so that's the point of the competition, really. So big thank you to those guys and anyone else who does the red team stuff.
As far as how it works, there's three areas that we're scored in. The first of which is injects. So he was talking about the business injects, responding to having to set up a new service, set up users, delete users. And all of those, they have a certain point value that they're not necessarily told to us ahead of time. In addition to, they give us a time limit. So we have to make sure that we get those, get them done correctly. We follow, best practices as far as best as we can in the time frame that we're given, so we can get the full points for each inject. And then also services. So like we have to keep our mail server, DNS server, web server. We have to keep those up. And there's a scoring engine that's doing periodic checks every 3 to 5 minutes or so. That does a check on all the services. We get points for those. If our service is down for a specified amount of time, then we suffer a service level agreement where they actually start taking points away. So instead of not only are we not getting the points that we need for having the service up, but they're also taking points away from us, which has been our team's one of our big things at Nationals is that the service levels they hit us pretty hard on the first day, but we usually get them up in they stay up for the rest of the weekend, and we make back a lot of the points. But that's really the hard part for us is getting those service points that they just take away from us, and it keeps on stacking. So if we're down for an hour, they take away a certain amount of points, and then after the second hour, they take even larger number of points away for that second hour. So it's 20 points for the first hour, 40 points after the second hour. So it's a total of 60 points after 2 hours. and it just keeps on compounding up after that. So you really want to make sure that your services don't go down. And then finally, the hacks. So at the Western Regionals, the red team was actually able to hack some of the other teams enough times that they got more points than some of the blue teams. I actually think, did Rafi alone get more points than some of the teams? Yeah, at the Western Regional, there's one red team member who got enough points to beat out 4 of the other blue teams from taking points away from them. So, they're not officially scored, but they're, someone is keeping track just for laughs, I suppose. So.
Socks are key to victory.
Okay, so now I just want to talk a little bit about how we prepared the team over the last year. One thing that we started out last year was team organization. So Sean McAllister, he was this year's team captain. He was mostly chosen because of his military background, something that we started 2 years ago with Peter Springer. Peter and Sean, they both brought a strict military discipline to the team, which we think was key to making sure that everything, not only during practices went smoothly, that everyone had a clear chain of command, but also that when something needed to be taken care of, they had no problems with being forceful and making sure that it got done. So Sean McAllister was the team captain. On the infrastructure side, taking care of Cisco, DNS, just everything network related. I was this infrastructure lead with David Jowie being backup for me. On the Unix side, so Linux, FreeBSD, Solaris if it's there. We had Anthony Mendez, who could not be here today, as the lead, teamed up with Stephen Crane. On the Windows side, we had Raul Hurtado, who also could not be here today, leading up Windows, Exchange, SharePoint, all that. That was their area of expertise. And he is backed up by Sean Richardson and Jared Rathman. And then finally, we had Jeff Henbess, our coach. He's graduated last year, was on the team for the 2 previous years, currently works at Boeing, and been a great source of information and mentorship for us.
Yeah, and this structure comes from the military. It's basically set up like a squad, and it's split into smaller units because it makes it easy to organize. Rather than me having to go to, Steve or Jared about something specific, I would essentially, the idea would be when I have a task for the Windows team, I would hand it off to the Windows team lead. Windows team lead would then delegate it to his individual peers, and it just makes organizing things, practices, jobs much easier. Than just kind of everyone running around with, like a chicken with their head cut off.
Okay. One thing that isn't specifically up here is documentation, because each of these areas has documentation, but not all of us are necessarily the best. Some other teams, they actually specify a single person that does all the documentation because of they have the business skills, they have the writing skills. In the past, we have had a documentation person. This year, that was mostly David Jowie. His business experience came in real handy, and when we had to write reports. But that was a task shared by everyone this year. So. Training. Basically, we would meet every week. Rain, shine, doesn't matter. Grandma's dead. Well, no. Finals week. Yeah, we even met during finals week. We did not stop practicing. We practiced for 6 hours every Saturday. On top of that, we would distribute homework, projects. Say, hey, you need to have this done by next week, or you need to bring in a VM that's vulnerable. It's got weak passwords, misconfigurations. Bring that in 2 weeks so that everyone else can mess with it. I actually set up a server that I had everyone upload their files to, and then we shared it out with BitTorrent, so people could easily download those and work on them at home. What else we got? I'm sorry? Virtualization. Oh, yeah. The biggest thing is we don't have a lot of hardware. The hardware that we do have available to us is P4s with 512 megabytes of RAM. So virtualization is key for figuring out how to set up these services and secure them. Everyone is expected to bring their laptop and virtualize, 2, 3, 4 systems on their computer so that we can make them all interoperate. Most of us use VMware. Does anyone use VirtualBox? Yeah, you open source freak. So yeah, VMware is a huge source of utility. Yeah, thank you for us, particularly with VMware ESX vSphere. I set up a server that we put. How many VMs did we have at one time?
15 to 20. We set up 2 ESX servers and hooked them together. Essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So we set up two ESX servers, basically next to each other with a private network shared between them, and a VPN so that the team, no matter where we had our little setup, we could move it, and it was its own little enclosed network. You just plug it in, it gets DHCP from whatever network you're on, and then private network is all of our CCDC VMs. You can VPN into there, and you're just on that network behind the firewall or router or whatever. Made it really easy to have practices at any location, just because we took those computers, moved them, or if during the week when we didn't have official practices, everyone was expected to VPN in and work on those. And the final key to our training was just having a lot of fun. We take breaks every once in a while to do something funny. Like I don't know if you guys know about Power Thirst. It's one of our favorite YouTube clips. So
We'll show it if we have time.
yeah.
But one of the things about the VM infrastructure is that, just like Professor Brown mentioned, we did get topology, but it changed every damn day. So as we were going, yes, it was. We would check the website in the morning, like, oh, look, it changed again. We'll have to reconfigure the VMs, and then we'll check it at night. Oh, look, they changed it again. So that just made it very easy, just to mimic the changes of the topology as closely as we could, as far as like operating systems and where they would be.
A lot of the times it wouldn't tell you they changed it. You just have to look very carefully for the 1 or 2 things they did change.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, like operating system revisions, or they snuck one more laptop in there or something like that. So.
Oh, look, the mail server's gone. Oh, no, wait, it's over there now. No,
Oh, it just changed from Windows to Unix or vice versa.
no big deal.
So.
There's a phone system, there's no phone system. There's a phone system.
Yeah. That happened in the competition,
Team
too.
building. Okay. Probably the one thing that everyone that asks us, what's our secret, or they say you guys work really well together, what do you do? And it's we took great lengths to make sure that we built our team more as a family than just a bunch of students that are coming together to do this competition. Like Sean started out with, we're from 2 different clubs. So a lot of the people that are part of CCDC, they were either e-board members of the club, or they heard about us around campus. They joined the club. They joined CCDC, and it's just a source of great camaraderie for ourselves, because we put on these events where we teach other students, some sort of topic about security, computers in general, and it's it takes a lot of the information from CCDC, and we can reapply it to the students and give something back to the rest of the community, even though they're not able to participate in CCDC because we have the team limit. So those clubs, through the events that we put on for that, it's a great way for us to meet each other, make sure that we're building the cooperation that we need. One thing that we love about our team is that when there's something that causes some sort of issue with the team or with the competition, that you might spend 30 seconds mad about something, or frantically running around trying to get it done, but after those 30 seconds are done, everyone is back to work. There's no hard feelings, and we're just back to getting our stuff done, and we get it done on time. So
Yeah, there were teams that got into fistfights at the competition, and that wasn't us. And those guys didn't win either. But
I was just want to
They wouldn't
say
invite it back
that
either.
that's probably common among most of the teams. From what I gather from the DePaul team, their team got really close and learned to work together really well. And I think that's the way it works with most of the teams, is you learn what one person knows and one person doesn't know, and then you just learn each other really well.
yeah, and the big thing is that you learn to trust what other people can do, so that you know that since you're not good at that particular topic, that you can delegate that to someone else, or ask someone else for help, and they'll be able to get that done when you think that you might not be able to. So I've never set up BSC jails, but there's one guy on the team who he's great at it. I didn't really know about it before that, but he took care of everything. Everyone specialized in something. So you knew that if you needed to go to someone for something, then you knew who to go to. So.
Yeah, that's one really key thing, is that everybody's friends before the competition. Competition is the most stressful 3 days that they're ever going to have that entire year of school. And they all understand that. They all understand that that's a very stressful time, and they're going to be friends afterwards. So there's not, nobody's butt hurt. Nobody's going to hold it against somebody for snapping for 30 seconds, because we're all friends in the end, and before and after.
And just one thing to touch on, these are some of the skills that you cannot teach in the classroom for having participated in an organization like this. Think about some of the IT departments you may have worked in, or might be ready to get to work in. Do you have that type of camaraderie in your IT department? Would you like to have someone that can build that structure within your IT department?
Okay.
Do you guys have anything you want to add?
So at DePaul, we have a lot of the same team structure as these guys do. But usually when I look to build a team every year, I look for not a person who has the most skill in an area, but I look for the person who likes to learn the most on their own and has the most passion for anything in security. I can take a person that doesn't know anything about, administering a Windows server and teach them in 3 months. That's not a problem. I can't teach someone that that doesn't want to learn, because they just don't care. These guys have, a ridiculous amount of practice sessions. That's amazing you guys can do that. I'm not going to lie. We have a month to prepare for our state competition because we're not in school in December or November. So we start January 3rd, if we're lucky, building a team. And by the beginning of February, we've managed to go to regionals every year for the last 4 years, because these guys are just that committed. They go home and do it all their free time. It's amazing. I don't know what we'd do without wanting to learn and passion. I guess the one thing that you guys, maybe you don't see it in Western, but usually when we do our regional competition, we have an air gap. So the competition network's not connected to the internet at all. We have 1 or 2 machines that are connected to the internet, and we can move things over via flash drive, which is great until you have to patch. Especially when you're given Oracle 9i and you can't patch it because it doesn't have a direct connection to the internet, and your whole database disappears twice. You guys said you're from 2 different clubs. We founded one club for security at DePaul. We actually have a security undergraduate degree, so we founded our student group to find people for this competition and help teach others as well.
And finally, we'd just like to thank a lot of people that made the Western Regionals happen for us. Most importantly, Dr. Manson is the primary organizer of the Western Regional. This was his baby 3 years ago. He got it started. He personally went to the different clubs and was promoting it to the students to get that first group of students interested in it.
Yeah, Dr. Manson isn't here, unfortunately, but if anyone wants to get in contact with him about this, just come and talk to one of us, and we'll be happy to put you in contact with him.
Yeah. Helping me out was Professor Anna Carlin, along with Professor Brown. Gary Pierce was the leader of the white team. Brian DeWolf works in the Cal Poly Network Group. James Schneider was Professor. I'm sorry. Professor Brown, James Schneider was on the black team with Professor Brown. Helped set up pretty much all the network infrastructure and the VMs, or not the VMs, the desktops and servers. Joe Luna, who's here in the audience, captain of the red team, the various red, white, black, and blue teams, gold team members. There's gold team?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, okay.
We don't see him much, but yeah,
So we got fed.
they fed us, so
Oh,
thanks.
okay. Okay, makes sense now. The financial sponsors and the Cal Poly College of Business Administration for their Center for Information Assurance. it's really, that organization is the organization that puts on the Western Regional and provides the Cal Poly team with the funding and computer systems that we need to make sure that we are able to succeed. And also the national CCDC organizers and a lot of the people from last year's team who are not in the audience, even though they're here at the conference.
Yeah.
They're still asleep, I'm sure.
So, okay.
Still
Yeah,
asleep.
there's everyone's contact info.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
Okay.
So let's see. There are a few little things that I'd like to just kind of get out there, a few thoughts that I had on it. So I can see there are a lot of people here who aren't exactly students. And if you're looking for more information, we did a talk at B-Sides. And one of the things that we kind of focused on was trying to not so much talk about CCDC because, let's face it, we're at Blackhat right now. And not that many students can throw down like the $1,500 for a ticket. So for our talk, we focused a little bit more on how lessons we learned from CCDC and how to do pretty much an effective war game type scenario for your IT department. So if you're interested in that, those videos should be up sometime soon. And our contact info is on here, I think. If not, it's on those slides. Okay. So some other things that I'd just like to point out, a few little like you guys were talking about the red team earlier. I think the red team is really the key to this whole competition because we've had really, really awesome red teams. I mean, nationals, like they bring in some insanely smart people and you just get destroyed. And we've had other competitions where, not to name any names, but we didn't exactly have great red teams. We got guys who, they came in, they were given an automated pen testing tool and they just kept clicking the go destroy that network button. And some of those competitions weren't great. One of them, we actually, the red team had layer 2 access. We deployed IPsec. We didn't even have to patch our machines. The connection was so slow we couldn't patch our machines, but we put IPsec on, kicked our feet up, and didn't learn anything or didn't have a good time. There was no point to being at that competition. So, thank you, red team guys. And if you're listening, if you're thinking of kind of rolling your own competition, be it for or joining up on this one, definitely try to get a good red team because, anyone can run a network. This is not, you don't want this to be an everyday sit at your desk IT experience. You want this to be the, oh my God, the network's on fire, make it stop now experience.
Just some background on the competition quick. Back in 2004, a group in San Antonio started meeting to put together this competition. 2005 was the first competition in the Southwest, and they had 5 teams there. The next year in 2006 was when regionals started. They had 44 teams compete. It's been amazing growth. And this past year in 2010, there were 83 teams? I think I said 86. That's amazing growth, and it's all thanks to the volunteers who put this on, which is a lot of you guys. The sponsors, all the students and the faculty that are willing to put the time into this. And it's a great experience. I think from the volunteers I've talked to, a lot of them have had a lot of fun, had a lot of, learned things, and it's a great time.
So one last thing that I would just really like to drive home. This is my absolute favorite CCDC experience, and I think between the two of us, we've done 15 competitions, so we've been to quite a few. So one of the competitions, we were doing extremely well. Everybody was in one big pit, so the red team and all the blue teams were all in one big pit, and they had a nice real-time scoreboard going. It was the last hour of the competition, and it was pretty much us, one other team were far and away first and second place. There was a little competition between us, but most of the other teams there were so far behind that they just, there was no chance of them catching up at all. And it was last hour of the competition. Everything was up. Everything was going. We'd already killed all our injects. We were just kind of, sitting there hoping another inject would come in so we could get some more points. One of the teams that wasn't doing so hot, their advisor walked over into our pit and came up to me and said, excuse me, I've noticed you've been doing really well. You've really been getting these injects taken care of, and your team's doing really well. We're in a rut. We don't know how to do some of these injects that we got in the first hour of the competition. We're totally screwed. We've got no points. We've had so much downtime. There's no chance that we can, win anything. We're not, and we've gotten to the point where we're mad, we're frustrated, and we're not enjoying this at all. Would you come over and help us out? So that last hour of the competition, I went over into their pit, I sat down with their guys, I started talking to them, I started teaching them. I still have, people I talk to online from that competition. Years from now, that will be the one thing I still remember from this competition, was talking with people from the other schools. And I really think that doesn't happen enough. I'm sure you guys have seen it, like at our regional competitions, you're in the hotel and you just see a cluster, oh, there goes the cluster of students from the other school, and everybody's clumped together. Oh, quick, don't go over and talk to those guys. They're from the other school. They're gonna social engineer us and steal how we did Inject 3, even though they have access to the internet and they can look up a FAQ on how to set it up. No, that is really dumb, and it says in the charter for CCDC that this is supposed to help build networking, not just between you and the people running it, or you and the red team, or you and the sponsors. It should really be between you and the other blue teams, because these are going to be your contemporaries. These are going to be other people who are going to be working at the same companies in the same field you should be in, and you should get to know them, because while they are competitors for that one day, they're going to be good friends and good resources for a long time after that.
That's a very, very excellent point. Our rival UAT, we get along quite well with them. It was a pretty bitter rivalry at first, I'm not gonna lie, but we've made friends since with a lot of the guys from UAT. And now one of my coworkers is someone I competed directly against from UAT. So there you go.
Yeah, we're kind of the same way. One of my other favorite memories was actually us with Baker, the guys who won nationals 2-3 times. 2 years ago, they beat us, but one of my favorite parts was just our whole team and their whole team sitting in the hot tub at the hotel, just kind of like, how was your day? Not bad. How was your day? Not bad. Everybody else is running around, not talking to anybody, and we're just kicking back in the hot tub. It was great.
And I think that's the total key of CCDC is information sharing. So it builds like a network of people that that are so passionate about computer security as well as you. And that's the key of building like any person that's interested in this. So they come and they're like, well, I kind of like using Metasploit, and I've heard of Backtrack before, and they have no idea about any of this stuff, and then you give them some focus and you say, hey, this you can do all this, and you can meet these people, and the competition is awesome, and it just gives you this great focus and this great like support group of people that are passionate about everything that you are, and whenever you share that, it's just that's what builds it. That's what makes the team who it is, and all the teams, I'm sure.
Yeah, back echoing what was said earlier, there were a couple of guys on this team, or a few of them actually, that never been involved with anything like this before. A year ago today, they'd never configured Apache. They didn't know what bind was. They, knew almost nothing about the security and infrastructure field. They knew a lot of stuff about a lot of other things, but they got curious, they got involved, and they went to nationals. Now they're here. So it shows how far you can go when you apply yourself with this stuff. I think if everyone wants to go down the line and share their first CCDC or their most favorite CCDC memory, and then we'll open it up for questions.
In 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, 30 seconds or less. Go.
Okay. One of my favorite CCDC moments was at our regional competition this year when we had a 2-hour VPN inject, and then at the same time we got a 2-hour radius inject, both of which are my exclusive specialties. So I spent an hour and a half working on the radius inject, got that up. And then while I was working on that, I delegated the VPN inject to the rest of my team. I asked them to set up a Linux server on the VM or on ESX for me, so that as soon as I finished radius, I could go ahead and start working on the VPN. In 15 minutes from memory, I set up a OpenVPN server with writing the documentation and having it all work in 15 minutes with the help of my team, because having to sit there and wait for the Linux server to get installed would have just killed me. But thanks to you guys, that worked out. So, John? No.
Okay, my first competition, I'm still a relative security noob. I get thrown onto a machine that I'm not that familiar with. So long story short, the red team had a copy of Core Impact that had just been updated to include a vulnerability for a certain unpatched, or I should say an exploit for an unpatched service that was running on my machine. Someone asked me to help them click through a Windows install because they had more important things to do, and I was the FNG on the team. So I'm sitting there waiting for this thing to go, and I reach over and start running random commands on my computer. Eventually, I forget stuff, so I just start hitting W, enter, which shows you who's logged in, who's connected on what. And it's just root. But I'm bored. I got nothing better to do, so I keep doing that. All of a sudden, it goes from 1 line to 2 lines. And it's root smack. I'm like, oh, fuck. I dive over the table, grab the power cable, yank it out of the back, nearly send the server toppling over. And everyone's going, what? What happened? What happened? I'm like, hacker. And they're like, what? I'm like, someone was on this machine. Smacker was here. And so we go through, we do all this stuff, cut ahead a few hours, and we're sitting in the red team debriefing. And they get up there, they're talking us through it, and they go, and so our one big one that after we got through our little recon phase, once we wanted to start actually getting in, we had this nice vulnerability for an unpatched thing in the service on this box. And we got in on every team, except for one of the teams. Right when we hit agent deploy, that box just disappeared off the network. And we couldn't use that to pivot onto the rest of their network. We have no idea what they did.
I think I got 2. One was at a regional competition, and the red team, like about half the red team that year, was hiding behind the door. And one of the guys was just like, hey, it's a white team member, can you let us in? Yeah, sure. All of a sudden, they tried to rip the door out of my hand. And so I'm sitting there pulling on the door for like 3 minutes trying to close it because there's like 4 guys behind the door. And all the guys are sitting there like, what the hell's going on? What? Is she on something? It's like, I finally get the door closed, like, red team, thanks for your help, guys. And then the other one at regionals this past year, actually, we got an inject. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, PCI-related inject, great. Whatever, there's credit card information on here somewhere, probably a proposal to figure out how to, why should we do PCI? Well, because you have to. It's easy. And then I actually sat down and read the inject 5 minutes later, and it was to do a good chunk of a PCI SACD self-assessment in 2 hours on a network I knew nothing about. Yeah, I cried a little, and then got most of it done, I think. That may or may not have been completely truthful. It was awesome.
I guess mine's more of a overall encompassing. My favorite part of the entire competition was to basically create the team and to have people like Sean and Jared come in and never configure a Windows server, not know what Linux was and everything, and then at the competition just hand them a piece of paper. I handed Jared an inject that said, set up SharePoint in 2 hours. And I looked at it and said, thank God I don't have to do this. And I just handed it to him. And he got 90% of it done, and it was awesome because he had never touched that before. And it was really awesome to see how far he had come from, what's a Windows server, to, okay, I'll set up SharePoint in 2 hours. Fuck you, Sean. So that's probably my favorite part of the whole competition, just seeing these guys kind of really grow and just become incredibly proficient at what I asked them to do.
Does anybody have anything?
All right. One of my favorite things was going through. I was the part of my specialty was the web guy. PHP. dynamic web languages, any vulnerabilities there. That was my thing. So going through our web root of a website that we had set up for nationals, some store, okay, whoop-de-doo. Going through it, finding stuff. About halfway through the competition, finding that, oh, hey, look, it's a PHP backdoor. Nice. Read the script, going through, wait, this doesn't work. I had already locked down PHP enough that enough things didn't work so that the script was like, oh, this isn't going to work. I don't know if Red Team ever found it, but we found like 3 of them, and every single one of them was just, no.
Did you guys find the comment on the front page with the name or the login for the guy who had root access?
No. I think I changed some things about the theme, so...
So one of my, I have 2 real quick. If you go to www.wrccdc.org and you look at the past competitions, look at the 2009 competition, you'll see my ugly mug up there, standing alongside my colleague James Schneider. We look like zombies because we had been up for like 96 hours straight. Needless to say, we will never, ever, ever do a 24-hour straight competition in our lives ever again.
It was so much fun, though.
The second one was from the same competition. I would just happen to be walking into one of the team rooms, and I had noticed that their entire 18 members were gathered around this one PC. And to set the stage just slightly, one of Joe's colleagues had gotten root access onto the box, and they're sitting there watching the mouse move on its own. And I'm like, aren't you guys going to do something about that? They're like, the mouse is moving on its own. What's happening? So that was one of my favorite ones.
My favorite memory came from actually the few days leading up to the regional competition, and we, as we were told a few days earlier, we're losing all of our network equipment for the actual competition setup, and we were still playing around with the iPhones, trying to properly firewall them, etc. So back at one of our houses, I actually set up an emulated call manager on GNS3 on my laptop and hooked it into the ESX network to register VMs with soft phones and still be able to play with the firewalls.
I know Cisco UC engineers that can't do that stuff.
So to go to your moving mouse story, one of the competitions we were at, I noticed my mouse was moving, but it was on one of the machines that was out of scope for the red team to attack. And so we started freaking out, and we're like calling the white team, and they're like running their judging team in to come check it out, and they're getting like mad and running into the red team room like, what are you guys doing? This is out of scope. Get off this machine. And eventually someone called one of the IT people from the college, and they end up telling us, oh, that's a public machine that isn't supposed to lock, but our policy requires it to have a password. So we put a program on to move the mouse every once in a while so it wouldn't lock.
I think one of my favorite moments is that after we secure a box, like, we don't even have to worry about it just because our infrastructure team is so good that they block everything anyway. So we put up firewalls on all our systems, and it doesn't even matter because it doesn't get to it anyway. So like our infrastructure team was so good that like it really facilitated that we had the fewest hacks, and that we could do the magic. And speaking of magic, like, so one of the injects was that we had to do an entire Active Directory like change. So it's one directory to another directory. We didn't do that. We just DNS magic and says, hey, this is the actual domain name now. So this is where you go to for it. And like just knowing that kind of stuff, that black magic stuff, that it's really like the whole essence of the CCDC, like.
And making the most of what you have, like Davey running an ASA as a node on a network behind the IP tables firewall. It's running off of a laptop that's getting routed from the switch back into the switch after it hits the laptop, because that was the most effective solution.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a Cisco background. I've worked with ASAs a little bit. I really don't like them. At the regional and the national competition, we got ASAs at both of them. And like Jeff just said, I just got fed up with them, so I took them out of the front of our network, put them behind the switch, put a laptop in front of the switch, acting as our border firewall, which was awesome. It just gave us so much more control over what we were doing with our network. Let us run monitoring on it without even having to do like a span port or anything. And so just saying basically, fuck you, Cisco, I found something better. And it being a laptop with only one Ethernet port and figuring out how to make that work, that was awesome.
All right, I have two favorite memories. One was the 24-hour competition. It was actually 36 hours, a 3-hour break for dinner the first night. That killed a lot of teams. It killed a lot of teams. We had it with our with Peter Springer, who was there that year, the team captain, and his strict military discipline. Said, okay, you three go down for this period of time. You guys wake up 3 hours later. You get relieved, and that was a lot of fun. Having to stay up an extra hour or two and having to really manage your time. You could say, okay, well, I'm going to stay up an extra hour, but I'm going to lose an hour of sleep, and I'm only sleeping 2 hours in this block, and then I got 3 hours in the next block, so I'm only getting 5. Am I going to be able to make it through the entire competition like that? Whereas some other teams decided that beer was going to help them stay awake the entire competition, and were nearly disqualified for throwing fights with each other. So that was my first favorite memory. Second one was that year at Nationals. We had a Solaris box. It was our mail server. We migrated everything off of it. We had all the files on a BSD server that was clean. We installed it right before then, and we get all the IPF rules in, and you have to reboot for the IPF rules to take effect. Reboot never comes back. Solaris or Sun hacked us. Sun was the best red team member that year. It was a patch that was fixed in Workstation and OpenBSD, but not Solaris. Yeah, Solaris Workstation, Open Solaris, but not Solaris Server. Because why do you need? Yeah, your critical infrastructure doesn't need that. Oh, and it turns out the red team that year didn't even touch that box because they didn't have Solaris shellcode. So go figure.
Joel Luna wants to say something.
So being on the red team, there's a lot of favorite moments. But there's so many random things that you hear when you're walking around, and you kind of mingle with the blue teams. One of my favorite things of the last regional competition was, I forget which blue team it was, but we're talking to the guy that was managing the ESX box. And he said, yeah, I was the only guy on our team that was working with VMware, so I thought it was kind of odd that there were 2 console connections. So if you work with VMware, you kind of problems for them.
Yeah, our team actually freaked out about that because we knew what that indicated, and one person saw 2, and he just freaked out like, who else is there? Who else is there? So.
All right. So, does anyone have any questions for us? I know we were supposed to.
Did you guys swap back and forth between blue and red like 1 year?
No, the blue.
As a student, you're not allowed to be on the red team at all. Then the blue team, except for, you have to be a full-time student. The regulation is you have to be a full-time student. You cannot be more than 20 hours a week in industry to be on a blue team. If you don't qualify for that, you qualify for red team. It's the way we read it, so causes on the red team. There's no swapping back and forth. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the question was, can you... Oh, yeah.
Not a problem. Black team members are infrastructure. They basically set up the servers, PCs, routers, switches, firewalls, and put the architecture together. They're also in charge of the scoring engine for services. The white team members are the judges. There will be a white team member in each of the rooms or pods with the students in case there's ever a malfunction or a problem. They will raise that to the black team members. They are also in charge of all of the scoring. They are also in charge of all of the business injects that are given to the blue teams. The blue teams, of course, are the student teams that compete, and the red teams are the industry professionals that try to attempt the break-ins on each of the individual teams. Did that answer? What about gold? Excuse me. Thank you very much. The gold team, and this is different from region to regional and state to state. In the Western region, the gold team are the overall administrators who are in charge of setting up the facilities management, getting the food, getting hotel accommodations, the logistics people. Where do you guys host Western region? It is hosted on the campus of Cal Poly Pomona in the Bronco Student Center and at Kellogg West where we have our receptions. We would love to rotate. Unfortunately, there's not been a lot of other school support. There's been a lot of interest from students from other schools, but not a lot of faculty support from other schools.
Self-serving question, because at SAIC we're doing some of the gaming. Do you guys want to see better visualization of scores, actual points, or do you want to see rankings?
Yes.
Because, I mean, there's one of the things, knowing that you're 12,000 points in the lead is great. It's also demoralizing the team.
Exactly, and that is the huge debate.
If you're team 2, do you care?
Right, that is the huge debate between.
Badly, you know you're doing badly because when you get your service checks and you keep seeing, let's face it, you guys do tell us like, hey, this is down, just so we know that it's not scoring outside. If I've been sitting here for like 4 hours and I know that this stuff's been down and I know we're not getting in injects, I know we're probably not going to be doing that hot.
It's not T-ball anymore. It's not like you go and participate and everybody gets a participation trophy. You know, you go and show up and it's a competition. It's not.
So you want to see actual numbers?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm hearing from organizers they don't.
Yeah,
Organizers
as the
don't.
coach, I'm vehemently against live scores because and I will defend that to the
I
death.
agree.
I picked up from some of the things. Fewest successful hacks. That would be useful to know. Like what
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, there are certain statistics that you can show that don't really play into the score directly. Like you can kind of infer things about the score from there, but yeah, at the Nationals, they have 3 different categories, and they tell you the ranking for each of the different categories, the top 3 teams. Yeah, just to quickly wrap up, but yeah, some of the teams, when they don't know the score, they think they're doing more poorly than they actually are. Like one of the teams actually dropped out of the last regional, or maybe it was the regional before. Yeah, they were in.
They were close to taking second.
They were 50 points away or something.
They literally stopped and installed Windows 95 on all of their machines because it was warm.
But imagine the teams that were actually doing poorly that would have dropped out the day before that. So.
Okay, what's the right there question there?
Well, I'm just going to bring the national point of view for why we don't give scores minute to minute. Red team activity is specifically designed to be equal across all teams. Right. And so if I exploit team A with a certain exploit, I have to try that same thing against all other teams. There's a time lag associated with everything happening and bringing those scores in. The automatic scoring engine, it'll tell you if your service is up or not. It'll tell you when you're passing service level agreements. But if I hand you a Cisco Pix and say, here's an inject in an hour, the last company said this would solve all their problems, and now we'll solve all our problems, it takes us a while to score that against all the teams and still try to run the competition. So there are time lags on various score pieces. I will say this, not between first and second, but between second and third in the Nationals, it's been decided once by 1 point out of over 5,000. Oh my God. It took 3 audits.
Question in the
from
back.
a single round.
We got a question in the back here.
So real-time scoring has issues.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with that. Thank you very much.
All right, yeah, so let's get this question here, please. We did documentation. We have probably over, I don't know, Yeah, we have huge, we use a file sharing service. We write our own documentation for how to set up different services, how to, different links and everything like that. So luckily we have 4 people going into this competition this year that were in the previous year. But a lot of it's just documentation and knowledge passing like that.
We don't have anything nearly as set up or prepared as documentation, actually. We just have people that return every year that are willing to spend time to teach others. And we hold student meetings throughout the year to talk about, things that we learned.
That as well. I mean, I think we covered that we do practices and everything. We have the returning or the previous year's members that help out with that practice. And then they, I guess, do like a mentorship style thing where they say, hey, this is what you do.
All right, we're going to run out of time. Cause, what do you got?
So you guys said you did get hacked, right?
Yeah, we mentioned you by name.
Yes, Babyface hacked us.
Any more questions from this side of the room?
Not only did he get called Babyface by Business Week, but he got called Babyface at Blackhat.
All right, so in the front here.
They make it so we can't call them. They set up their firewall or however they set it up. Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So for our phone, at the regional this year, we're in charge of our own phone system. Joey and I were able to get that set up, no problem. The problem that we were having is that our network was so secure is that we could not figure out how to unfirewall it. So we could make calls outbound, but no one could call us.
So it didn't really work.
Time or answer?
Did that answer your question? I mean,
I'll talk to you.
and in the back there, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
At least we're at one point.
No.
Midwest.
We're both Midwest. Everybody else is.
And we're Western.
Western region, yeah.
I had a mohawk for all the competitions.
Correct. It's completely defensive.
You can mention the one inject where
We did have one inject where we were supposed to hack into. Basically, we had our own server, and someone forgot the password, so we had to break into it to get it. But that was inject. Yeah, exactly. It's only defensive. The basic idea is like a business. If you hack someone who hacked you, that tends to be illegal. So they didn't want to focus on that. Yeah, that's true.
Thank you very much. We'll be available outside if you guys want to continue asking us questions.
All right, thanks for coming, guys.